this video, I'm going to show you how to make a painted paper using texture rubbing and crayon resist watercolor painting. A texture rubbing is when you rub the paper with naked crayons to reveal a texture on the paper. You can use anything to create your texture on the paper, including construction paper scraps, leaves, things that are a little bit bumpy but not too high. So something kind of flat but a little bit bumpy. So you're going to put your paper on top of the things that you're going to rub the texture on. Take your naked crayons and rub. And then the texture starts to show up on the paper. You can rearrange or get other objects. You can switch colors. And now we have some interesting texture up here on the paper. Also, you can add some abstract designs on top of your texture, such as lines, blocks of color, shapes. But because this is going to be a painted paper that we're going to use in another project, it's probably best to keep it abstract. Abstract is work that doesn't really look like anything specific. So it's just kind of random shapes and lines. Once we're done with the drawing, we're going to apply some watercolor on top. In the next section, I'll show you that process, which is called watercolor resist painting. Now we're going to get our watercolor paint out. Get your paintbrush wet, make a puddle in the color you would like to use. I think I'm going to use black because I think the contrast between the bright colors I have and the black paint is going to make a really neat design. So you're just going to go over the whole paper with your watercolor, so you can start to see the textures really pop up. You can use more than one color for your watercolor or just stick to one. If you don't have watercolor paint, you could also try using marker paint. That is coloring with marker and going over with water to turn your markers into watercolor paint. Make sure you paint to the edges. And my table's getting really dirty, but if you're working on a table that you're not supposed to get dirty, make sure you put a scrap paper under your paper so that you can still paint all the way to the edge. So here's a painted paper. Now I can use this paper for other projects. Now I can cut these papers out, paint on top. I can use this as my base and it'll add a lot of interest to the designs. Here's another example. These textures I actually got by rubbing the paper on the wall. And I'm adding some abstract designs, and then I will add some watercolor paint on top. And here's another example. Again, we'll let this dry and then we'll use this as a part of another project. If you're going to make more than one like I did, please try and make both of them very different. That way, in the next step of the project where we use this to make your designs, it'll be more interesting because you'll have two different papers where you can combine the designs to make your next step.